In the coming weeks, I'll use whatever power this office holds to engage my fellow citizens, from law enforcement to mental health professionals to parents and educators, in an effort aimed at preventing more tragedies like this.
That was the president with a call to action this past Sunday night, speaking at the vigil in Newtown. So the question is, what, if anything, can the president do to increase gun safety? He's reportedly asked his cabinet for suggestions, some ideas, like background checks he can do by executive order. Doesn't have to go through Congress at all. And for others, he will need to go through the legislative branch. But would he have the support of the American people behind him for some ideas like, for example, assault weapons? Andrew, you've been looking at what's basically going to be on the front lines here in terms of this fight, and a fight that I imagine we're going to really see for the next 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah, and when it comes to the gun safety approaches likely to be considered, not only would the president have public opinion on his side, but for many, he'd even have the support of ardent gun owners. First up, a ban on assault weapons, some of which we're showing you here. The president does have room to push for a new assault weapons ban. 57% of voters say they'd support an assault weapons ban. 52% would support a ban on semi-automatic handguns. Then there are the extended ammo clips, those longer clips which first got national attention after the shooting of Gabby Giffords. 59% of voters say they would support a ban. Criminal background checks for gun purchasers and for the people who sell guns. A whopping 96% of all voters support background checks. So do 74% of NRA members, and nearly 80% of NRA members support criminal checks for gun sellers. On gun sales to the people on the terror watch list, the NRA officially opposes a ban, but 71% of the NRA's members would be fine with a ban on potential terror suspects. Finally, a provision requiring gun owners whose guns are stolen to report those thefts to police. 64% of NRA members would support such a requirement, Rich. So there is some middle room in this debate where it seems even ardent gun owners would support some measures that the president could implement.
Okay, I want to bring in our panel on this, Andrew. Thank you. Gian-Carlo, former advisor to both Presidents Bush Jr. Sr. and Dominic Carter, political journalist and author, and Andy Pelosi, executive director of States United to Prevent Gun Violence, and we already met Andrew. Okay, Andy, on Friday, the NRA is going to have a press conference, they said late this afternoon, and they issued a statement today after being basically radio silent since the shootings, saying it's a terrible shame and that they're going to outline what they believe needs to happen next. Andrew went through a lot of numbers there, but it seems there is a public, if not a political, appetite to do something about the reality post-Newtown. Am I being naive, or do you think this time will be different than, as the president said, the other 3 massacres that he's had in just his 4 years in office?
I like to think that things are going to be different this time. I was in Washington on Friday, actually this past Friday, when things happened, and we got the news with other advocates, and we decided that we were going to go to the White House and organize an impromptu vigil, which we did, and calling on the president to lead. Really, that today was the day that he needed to start leading, and I think the response was good. I think that from what we've been hearing, the public is definitely energized. I think this is different this time. We have to remember 20 little kids were killed. I mean, I'm a father of 2. I've got, I put my kids on the bus. Yep. I expect them to come home at the end of the day. All those parents didn't have their kids come home. So I think this has struck a chord, a nerve, I think, in the United States that's maybe different than some other times. And I think that folks want something done, and they want it done, soon.
Gian-Carlo, your old boss allowed the assault weapons ban to sunset. I'm not asking you to read minds right now, but you think there's regret today?
I don't know. I think that, first of all, our legislators, I believe, hearts are all in the right place. Everyone wants to do the right thing. No one ever wants to see a tragedy occur again like what we endured last week. But the devil will be in the details when it comes to legislation. And I agree with Andy 100%. I think there are reasonable measures that can be taken and absolutely should be taken to prevent tragedies like this. The president said it perfectly in his speech. There is no law, there are no set of laws that will prevent something like this from happening again, but that cannot deter our resolve to try. And he's exactly right there. That said, when you look at the assault weapons ban, and you look at the list of horrific school shootings that occurred between 1994 and 2004, including Columbine, in many of those instances, assault weapons were used, even though the ban was in place. That is not to say that we shouldn't revisit the issue or perhaps even pass the law, but it is not going to change things overnight. And I don't believe perhaps would have done very much had it been in place, unfortunately.
You know, Andy, to that point, there is an argument from people who said, listen, I'm tired of fighting the fight. Fine, you can have your assault weapons banned, but you know down deep it's not going to really change things too much. Right now there's more guns than Americans in this country, and magically we're not going to wave a wand and they're all going to disappear. What do you say to that?
Well, I think that, I mean, there's some truth to that. I mean, the fact is, what does the most carnage in this country are semi-automatic weapons, handguns. They do the most carnage. I mean, assault weapons definitely are used. They're military-style weapons. You know, the lethality is tremendous. There's no question. But what's really being used are handguns. And you know, again, I believe, I don't know all the facts from Friday, but handguns were also used as well as perhaps an assault weapon. I'm not positive about the Bushmaster if it was used or not. And if we're going to pass an assault weapons ban, we need a ban that's really a true ban. It's not talks about cosmetic features. It has to be something along what California has. That's what we really need. And we need to start. And we also have
uniform.
to.
It can't be just.
It has to be uniform. It can't be grandfathering.
We can't be red and blue in this country. It's got to be across the board. And Dominic, the elephant in the room here is the NRA. We're going to hear from them Friday, as I said. There's been small little signs today. Certain politicians. Pro-gun Democrats that come from states like Nevada and West Virginia who said, no, I'm willing to put change on the table. And then there's also Cerebus, who's the private equity firm behind the manufacturer of the Bushmaster, the assault rifle in this particular case that was used in Newtown, who said, we're out of this business. It's up for sale, we're out. The stock price has gone down for 3 straight days. But yet, in terms of political clout, although I think it's exaggerated at times, the NRA certainly is significant. The polls that Andrew, though, show 3 out of 4, 2 out of 3 Americans, out of almost every single standard they're talking about, supports this, including pluralities in the NRA. You think the NRA they can read the numbers too. You think they capitulate here to a certain degree, or do they fight the fight that the Second Amendment is the Second Amendment and we're not changing a thing?
I think that all of us can get on our knees and hopefully think that they will give in this time and realize this is not about a political win or a loss. This is about human life. This is about these kids in these little caskets. So you would hope so. I don't know, Richard. I mean, I have a funny feeling if you listen carefully to what some Republicans are saying. They're talking compromise and things that the president can do with executive order. No, that's not what the public is talking about right now. Let's start. Let the argument start with the ban on assault weapons, and then let's add the clips where you can't have more than 10 bullets. That should be the starting point. That will show that the NRA is real. Anything other than that is just a Band-Aid approach.
One point, too, that I think is worth noting, and that is the last time we had this debate was 1994 when the assault weapons ban was passed. That was obviously pre-September 11th, 2001. And I think in that time, or since September 11th, America has come to the realization that a certain amount of their so-called freedoms are going to have to be sacrificed for the greater good. And I think one of the differences that you will likely see, and I'm willing to wager that explains some of the NRA numbers that Andrew read, is that all Americans, including NRA members, realize that. And
I want to be clear on one thing. We're going to break. While I may be pointing a finger, and I think a deserved one at the NRA, this is not a Republican problem, okay? The president, the only 2 pieces of gun legislation that have gone through under this president have been things that have extended rights, insane rights for guns. So this is as much a Democrat problem as it is a Republican one, and the president, I heard the words, we'll see, and we'll talk a little bit later if there's delivery behind it. So let's not in any way confuse this as a single party issue. All right, we take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to ask if the power of the NRA will be curbed in the wake of these latest shootings, and we've got some interesting numbers behind that. Stay with us, please.